Welcome back to week 3 with Now Dev Notes, and me, Faith, your key study partner. Last week, we built a comprehensive design document, and that design document is for our ServiceNow application that we will be building throughout the rest of this series. So make sure you have it handy with you. Today's focus is really focusing on building our tables, and that table is really where all of our data is going to be stored, and that's so important because in ServiceNow, almost everything is what? A record in a table. So go ahead and get those design documents and let's get going. As a ServiceNow professional, it is so important to have a personal development instance. We'll call it a PDI for short. Think about it like your personal playground for you to grow and build on the ServiceNow platform. And it's easy to get. We'll be building everything related to our application and engaging in it and with it through our PDI. So all you have to do is go to the ServiceNow developer website and log in and click that you are requesting an instance and you'll be able to get one. Easy as that. Once you have your instance, I highly recommend that you customize it. Customizing it makes your employees and your fellow coworkers really be able to adopt this instance and know that it is theirs. It belongs to the company. And it also helps for differentiating between different instances that the company may have. So let's take a look at mine and go ahead and get yours and customize it. Here is my customized instance. Again, up here at the top, we know that we have our banner and then we have our content frame here in the middle. And we're going to use the application navigator to be able to customize this instance. So you're going to go to the system properties application and you have two options. You either can go to my company or you can go to the basic configuration UI 16, which is what I will be using. And here, as you can see, you update your banner image, the date format, the title. It's just so many things that you can customize here, again, to really adopt this instance and feel like it's your own. Everything is here for us in our customized instance. There are 3 core ServiceNow developer tools. The first one is Application Engine Studio. This is great for low development code, and it has a great benefit of being able to push the application quicker to being live and also quicker to production into the market. It also has many guided flows to allow the user to be able to have assistance throughout development. So if you are a low-code developer or if you're doing some delegated development, this is a great environment to be able to create applications. Next, we have Guided Application Creator. This is great because just like the title says, it guides the user through being able to create applications. And it has key step-by-step processes so that users can create applications that are worthwhile and they have value. It is activated through a plugin that on most instances is already activated and helps us to be able to use it in many environments. It can be used in the ServiceNow browser or it can be used in Studio. And finally, we have the ServiceNow Studio IDE. This is the environment that we are going to be using to build this application. It is great because it is accessible for developers with a wide range of abilities. And it has a tabbed environment, which helps with organization. So you're able to build applications, and those applications, again, can range from applications that need low code all the way to scripting. Also, we're able to deploy those applications, and before we deploy them, if needed, we can debug as well. And it's great for collaboration, and that collaboration comes from its source control abilities. So we're going to talk about source control quickly here, and I can't wait to get into the studio. So let's talk about Git. Git is used for source control management, and it is cloud-based. There are many different ways to use Git, but we'll be using GitLab. And one of the key features is being able to have repositories. Repositories are important because it gives all users the access they need to the code base. That code base is either called the master branch or also the main branch. When a user wants to make a change, they branch away from the main repository and they're able to make whatever changes are needed, and then they merge those changes back to the main branch. So that way many people can be working on different code parts. Each branch is a copy of that main branch. And while we're working on our branch, we also can use something called a stash. And a stash is used to be able to store local changes on an instance for later application. And we can move those changes between different branches. And while we're doing that, we have to be careful because we can't pick and choose what local changes we save. all of them are saved inside of our stash. So that's just something to be mindful of, but it's still such a powerful tool in our development process. Now it is time to actually start building in ServiceNow. And we are going to be building by starting with our foundation, which is our tables. Tables hold all of our data in records. And like I keep saying, almost everything in ServiceNow is a record in a table. So there are 3 ways to build a table. The first way is by uploading a spreadsheet. When you upload that spreadsheet, that table is using all of the information from that document. The second way that we can do that is just by creating a custom table that had no previous data. We make it from scratch. But there also might be an even easier way, and the third option is to extend a present table. If there's a table that already has many of the fields that you want, use that. Don't start from the beginning. And when you do that, you're able to take a copy of all of what is called, that's called the parent table. We're able to take all of the parent table's fields and also add additional fields. It's like a win-win. And when we're doing that, anytime we modify our new table, it does not affect that parent table at all. So those are 3 great ways to build our table data. And we are now going to go ahead and get started so that we can see all of the features and capabilities of building tables in the ServiceNow Studio for our application. The first thing that I'm going to do is create an application menu for it. This application menu is what we're going to be able to see in our application navigator that kind of houses all of our different modules related to this application. So this title will just be what our application name is, which is just Study Space Scheduler. And I want to make sure that it is active, because if it's not active, no one will be able to see it. You can add roles here if you only want specific people to be able to see it now. And then you have your category, hint, and description. So none of those have the red asterisk, so they're not mandatory. So I'm not going to put them here. So now I can see it over here in the navigation, and you can see up here that I'm starting to work in a tab, because again, this studio has a tabbed environment. And now I'm able to continue in my development process, but now I will have an application menu in the navigator that will allow us to be able to access our application easier and quicker. Now time to get into my table. So once again, I'm going to click on create application file. Table is right here for me, and I click that and create. So the label is what you want your table to be called. So this will be my rooms table. This will hold all of the room information, again, for our study space. The name is, as you can see, is going to be automatically populated. I need to make sure that this is checked to create a module as well. I'm not going to make a mobile module only because this is just going to be in the classic environment. I also like to make sure that I add the module to a menu that has already been created, especially for our application. So this is, again, going to be under our Study Space Scheduler application menu. And so from here, we have important parts under here. We have our columns, controls, and application access. And from there, I can just click submit. And if I need to change anything later, I can do that later on. From here, as you see, my access controls are already created automatically, which is great. Again, those can be modified. And you see a module has also been created in plural rooms. So that way it is nested under the application menu that we had specified. We now have our first table created, and I will show how to take this new custom table and upload data from a spreadsheet that was already created. I will also show how to create one more table. So again, we go from create application file, we go to table, create. Again, the label for this table will be the room request task table. And again, we talked about before, another way for creating a table is to extend a table. So remember, that is taking a copy of all of the fields from what will be called the parent table and adding it into this table. And I can add additional fields as well. So this is going to extend the task table, because the task table has many of the fields that I want for my room request task table. And so it makes more sense to just extend that table rather than to create this completely from scratch. So I want to create a module as well. I don't, again, need a mobile module. And then I'm going to add this again to this Study Space Scheduler. And there it is again. So we click submit. And as you can see here, if we go to our columns, we have so many columns here, all from our parent table, which is task. We have now inherited all of those fields. And let's say that I still wanted to make sure that I had another field here that I didn't have before. So I might want to have a field that says, let's say, state. And for now, just say availability, state. And I would say that this is a choice. I can now add that field to my table along with all of the other fields that were inherited from the parent table, which again, it was just taking a copy of all of the fields that our parent table task had. And now I have my table ready to go and can still be modified throughout. And so overall, creating tables in the studio is pretty simple and I really enjoy it. I already had data in an Excel sheet for my rooms. So I wanted to be able to use that data and import it into the custom table that I made that was called rooms in Studio. So I'm going to use an import set and I'm going to show how I did that here. So first I have to begin by loading the data. And that is under the system import sets application. So I'm going to begin by making an import set table. So I'm going to just call this rooms data import. And this is kind of like our staging area. I choose the file for the Excel sheet so that it is able to be used. So right now I'm just going through and finding that data. And I make sure it's in a .xlsx format, Excel format, because that is necessary. And then we have our sheet number and then our header row, which is helpful for being able to match based on our first row. That's where it's going to get like our labels for our table here. So we click submit, and then it's great to see that we have all green, complete, success. It also shows how many were processed. Next, we're going to create a transform map. And this is how we take that new data and take it from our import set table and actually transform it into our target table. And so I'm just going to call this rooms data transform. I'm sure there probably is a better way, but that's what I'm going to call it. Make sure it's active. I have run business rules, enforce mandatory fields, no. And they're just other things that you can have when you're doing this transform. And then obviously we need to make sure that we have our target table, which is the rooms custom table that I made earlier in Studio. So before I run my transform, I like to make sure that everything is going to go to its appropriate place. So I'm going to click on Mapping Assist. And in this page, I'm able to actually make sure that everything is matching how I want it to from my import set table to my target table. So capacity, and I imagine that it probably could have done this, but I just like to be sure. The description with the description, we have a location with our location, and we have our room number. And again, this is coming from our import set table, and I'm making sure that it matches with the target table. But there's auto mapping and things like that, but I just like to be sure. And then from there, I'm able to transform. And once I clicked on transform, the one that I wanted, rooms data transform, is highlighted, and then I click transform. And great, I like to see all green, complete, success. And then I want to make sure that it worked. So I have my rooms list favorites. And then here we have all of my data has been transformed. It has been taken from my Excel document and it has been submitted into our custom table that I built earlier. And here it is, confirmed and looking good. So the private repository for all of my changes will be stored on GitLab. So after you have created a new login or you just sign in, you're able to go to new project, create a blank project. So mine will be study space scheduler. And then we'll have a project URL and a project slug, private, like I said, or you could have it public. It's up to you. Mine will be private. And then I'm going to initialize it without a README just for this example. And then because you can always push an existing repository, but I'm just going to do this and then create a project. Setup done. And we are now going to connect this to our ServiceNow application. So I'm going to go to code, and then I'm going to clone with HTTPS. I'm going to copy this URL, and I'm going to go back into the main ServiceNow window. And inside of this window, I am going to go to credentials. I already have it favorited. It's under connections and credentials. And I'm going to create a new one. And this is going to be a basic auth credential. And then the name is Modular GitLab. That's what I'll call it. I'll type in my username for GitLab, my password, and I'll make sure it's active, and then I will click submit. So after I fill in my username, password, make sure the credential is active and press submit, a new credential will be created. So now we're going to come back to Studio and we're going to go to source control and link to source control. This is going to link our current ServiceNow application with our repository in GitLab. So we are going to make sure that the HTTPS is selected for the protocol, and then the URL will come from what we did earlier when we clicked code and copied that link, and we're going to paste that here. And then the credential is the credential we just made earlier, which is scheduler. And the branch, we are going to make sure that this says main, or you can use master. Like I said, I use them interchangeably. And then everything else I'm just going to leave regularly. And I might put a commit comment, and I might just put initial commit and then link to source control. And then we wait a little bit, and then it will go through connecting these two so that every time I make a change, I'm going to send it there. So that way it is saved, like I said, on a cloud-based platform, like what was explained earlier. Success, we love to see that. And then close. And then from now on, anytime that we make a change, we're able to commit those changes. So right now I can't commit because I've already I just did it, but I can do commit changes. Now our source control is set up, and we will be using this through the rest of our application that we have set up. And that wraps up our study session for today. We were able to lay the foundation for our ServiceNow applications by creating the tables. And remember, tables are so important in ServiceNow. We also became studio professionals as we went through and explored all of the amazing capabilities of the studio platform. We then were able to also see just how important source control is in our collaborative coding environment and how to utilize it. We are definitely on our way, and we are making so much progress in our development journey. And I will see you next week.